Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we've got an awesome review for you. This is the Dart Zone Max Outlaw. This is a sidearm revolver style pistol, kind of a Deuce Pro 2.0 almost. This is a new revision, and yeah, we're gonna have some fun with it. Show you how it works, take it out on the range, get you some accuracy results, and then also run it over the chronograph, get you an average for several dart types, and yeah, take a quick look. Let's go ahead and get into the review. Alright guys, so this is the Outlaw. This blaster is super cool. I've had a chance to play around with it a little bit, and we're going to run it over the chronograph for you, but this is really kind of how it works. So it's a prime action hammer style blaster. So in order to prime the blaster, you pull this down, and that indexes the cylinder, which is full of darts. You got 6 shots, and the basic premise is you pull the trigger and shoots out a dart, and then you hammer down, and then it rotates the cylinder one space, and you continue in that fashion. Loading it is super easy. You have these 2 removable cylinders. They each hold 6 short darts. It comes with 12 of the ruby darts. Dart Zone Ruby darts. They're okay darts. They're not too bad. They're they're inexpensive, and they're readily available at Target and online. So they're good for that. Performance wise, they leave a little bit to be desired, but they will do for our testing. And we'll make sure that we test these as well as a few of our others, Worker Gen 3s, Bamboo from Dart Zone, and then also the Venture Force Ember darts. So for now, while we're in here, the easiest way I can tell you to do this is you just line it up with the slots on the one side. It's not compatible going through the other way, so you have to go on the left side. Slots in here. The rear end goes in pretty easy. It's this front end here that's a little difficult. You got to use a little bit of force, and I imagine over time that will get easier. But it's very, very clicky, and you feel like you're gonna break it, but that's the best way I can describe to load in your cylinder. To remove the cylinder, you just push out the same way, and yeah, so it looks like for ease of use, if you line up the flat end with the blaster, right, so you don't want to go in at an angle like this, you want it to go in like this so it's flat. That seems to click in a little bit easier. And aligns perfectly. So you've got a safety here, fire here. You've got your trigger in your trigger guard here. Iron sights here, front, rear iron sights. So you line up the 2, and presumably what your the top of your front iron sight is over top of is where you're going to be firing. So to prime it, you pull the hammer down. Again, it indexes once, auto returns, and then you're ready to fire. And it's got some snap to it. The trigger has a little bit of play in it, and the only reason for that is when the first action, it's almost like a dual action trigger. So in the first action, you start to pull it, you can see the barrel recedes back towards the cylinder to make a seal around that dart, and that's how the Dart Zone's achieving that higher performance as far as having a perfect seal around that dart, not having the air leak out between the actual chamber and the barrel, so they're able to get some better performance out of that. So it's super easy. The cool thing that I love about this blaster, love, is you can rotate the cylinder by itself, and it's got this nice little dart kind of guide. So you just put a dart in, and you just slide it right in, and it's just so nice. Just lays right in there, and you just slide it in, no problem. The indexing is that chamber. So when you load a dart, when you prime it back, that's the dart that loads in. So you're not gonna have to dry fire or cycle through or rotate it, which that is a possibility. You can rotate it either way, which is great for reloading. On the fly scavenging and stuff like that. The front end of the blaster There is no kind of like scar barrel included with this, which is fine, but this does have plenty of like wider diameter, which you could probably, I don't have a worker scar barrel unfortunately on me, but I think with the this blaster, you should be able to friction fit it in there. If it's too loose, I think that would be the issue. You just take some electrical tape and give yourself a couple wraps and then slot it right in. You'll be friction fit in. You'll be perfectly fine. But yeah, giving yourself an extra, you know, two or three FPS, like giving yourself a little bit better accuracy at the cost of your FPS really isn't a bad deal. You've kind of got this fake, super fake picotator rail, so it doesn't have like the teeth or the grooves in it. So you could definitely put on like a laser or a flashlight on the bottom here. You just want to make sure that it's the one that's like clamshelled, and it doesn't have like the screw that kind of is supposed to fit through those teeth. So that's the one thing you'll want to look for when you're trying to get a special attachment for this one. So yeah, so that's the features and kind of how it works. Let's go ahead and take it out on the range and see how she performs at 30 and 25 feet, since that's really probably about the engagement for this blaster. We might take it back to 45, but let's start at the 30. Okay, so we've got the Dart Zone Max Outlaw here on the range. We're at 30 feet. We've got fresh ruby darts. We're going to be going through all of them. We've got 20 shots each, and then we'll go from there. So we'll load it in. I'm going to use this box for kind of like stabilization. Aiming dead center. Alright, next up we have the Adventure Force Ember Darts from Walmart. We're at 30 feet with the Outlaw, aiming dead center. Alright, next up we have the Worker Gen 3 darts, 30 feet with the Outlaw, aiming dead center. Alright, next up we have the Bamboo 2.0 darts from Dart Zone. We're at 30 feet. Alright guys, so we are back in from the range with the Dart Zone Max Outlaw. This is a fun little pistol to use. Let me tell you, like, I didn't get a chance to use it in a war or anything like that, but just out on the range and plinking around the yard and the house and stuff like that, this is a lot of fun to use. And the hammer action is super smooth, and it's just so enjoyable. And like, I love this loading access point here, and it's just so much fun. So let's go ahead and look at some numbers and go over our range tests and everything like that. So let's take a look and dive right on it. Can you say consistency? Because looking at this average, 117 for Worker Gen, 117 average for the Ember Darts, 117 for the Ruby Darts. Like, that's really good. Now, couple that with the standard deviation, and they're pretty darn close. The Worker Gen 3, they came out on top at a 4.3 standard deviation, which is phenomenal. But I mean, 8.0 is nothing to scoff at, and you know, The bamboo darts coming in at 8.9. Again, nothing to be ashamed of. That's really good, consistent shots. And I just can't. I don't know what else to say, guys. Like this, maybe. Oh no, not maybe. This is the most consistent blaster that I think I've had, at least going from dart to dart to dart. Right? You know, there's some blasters that will use like the bamboo darts. They will work better with those, and it's way more consistent. You get a lower deviation with this one dart, but I don't think I've had it to where the average is so close and the standard deviation is so close. I'll have to go back and look at my Google sheet and take a look. Speaking of which, all my results, all my testing, that is on the Google sheet. That's in the description. So you can see shot for shot, every blaster I've ever tested, every average, all the different like kind of crunching numbers and stuff like that. That's all on that document. I'll have to go back and check because I think this might be the most consistent blaster I've had from these three darts. Like, it's phenomenal. Now the I just can't get over that standard deviation of 4.3. Holy smokes. But there's really not much else to kind of talk about here. The one dart that I did want to mention, only because it happened to me on a couple different occasions, and I don't think this is one of them. No, this isn't. So I had 2 or 3 of the Adventure Force Ember darts, the gray ones with the orange tip. I would load in, and they were, I could basically turn the blaster like this, and if that dart was in the cylinder fed track here, it would fall out. Now I'm gonna chalk that up to bad dart. They're all brand new darts, so maybe it was crushed a little bit in packaging, or maybe it just wasn't molded correctly. But you could definitely feel that it was not snug at all when it went into the cylinder. So keep that in mind. It's like I said, it's nothing to do with the blaster. The blaster is phenomenal. That's just what I saw with when I was loading in 20 darts. I didn't use that dart. I had just chalked it up as a defective dart and threw it away. So I want to point something out here, and that is the Dart Zone Max Outlaw has actually 2 firing capabilities or functions, or settings rather. And the second one's a hidden setting because it doesn't mention anything in it, in the directions or anything like that. And I stumbled across this by accident while I was loading using the side loading here. And I'll kind of demonstrate what I'm talking about. So when I was loading in the blaster, I was noticing that I could push the darts in pretty darn far. I was like, wow, that's strange that some of them go way down in there and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, all of them are doing that. And like, you can see like, so that one is way down in there, right? That's way down in there. And what's happening is, I can't tell if you can, I don't know if you can see on my overhead camera, but I was loading darts in like this. Like when I was messing around, I was loading darts in just like this, and I would slide in just enough to where it would not get hung up on the blaster itself, right? So I could freely rotate the cylinder. And I think you can see that it's pretty flush. Sometimes I kind of tap it in just a little bit further, but for these ones, I did it by accident. I pushed it in and I was like, wow, that goes in much further. Like, it's practically coming out the other side. So if you look at this, I'll pop this out here. So these are the 2 kind of fire settings that I came across. So you've got something that's a little bit more flush, like this one. And then you have a dart that's pushed all the way down into like the bevel. And the bevel is where the cylinder, when you pull the trigger, this cylinder retracts and kind of marries up to this cylinder when you pull that first part of that trigger, and then when you pull it the rest away, it shoots the air out, releases the air, or the plunger, and all that stuff, and then it goes coming out. But anyway, I wanted to share that with you guys because I thought this was really cool. And you would think that, you know, the dart that is pushed in further is seated a little bit tighter. would have a higher FPS. But oh no, 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 no. It's actually the other way around. The dart that's pushed all the way all the way back into the back of the chamber, so the ones that are like this versus like this, that like quarter, eighth of an inch is getting you 10 to 15 FPS drop. So if these numbers, if 117 is too hot for your organized play and you need to be at 100, just push your darts in just a little bit further. Bottom those babies out. So like you can see, this is probably a better way to show you. You can see that these ones right here are pushed all the way back. These ones are not, right? So these ones are going to have about 100 FPS average, whereas these ones are at 117. Now I was cracking 100 a little bit, but I was also falling into like the 98s. But yeah, that didn't really affect performance, like as far as accuracy is concerned. But if you need to be under that 100 level, that's a good way to get it. So just kind of, you know, hidden feature. Thank you, Dart Zone. So let's go ahead and switch over to our slides and take a look at our accuracy and our precision. Now, I do want to mention the second half of 2023, we've kind of changed up how we're doing the precision and accuracy. We're actually splitting them up, but not for this blaster. So there isn't a top Picatinny rail, so I can't attach an optic or anything like that. So I can't go through my precision testing, and then whichever blaster or whichever dart is more precise, I can zero that sight in and give you an accuracy test. I just combine them all like I did previously. So this is, you know, me aiming dead center of the target, 30 feet away, 20 brand new darts for each, and just trying to keep myself as stable as possible. But yeah, so we went through, and I'm shocked. Like the precision of these darts, you know, the Worker Gen 3, there could be an argument made for those darts being lower performing based on the fact that two of them fell out of frame. I do want to mention that they fell just out of frame. They didn't go into the grass or anything like that, and they just barely hit under the frame. So I'm going to chalk this up as that was the least accurate or least precision based shots that we had. Everything else was pretty much on point. You know, there's some arguments that that could be made for the bamboo darts. They had more darts, you know, kind of in that center cluster, whereas the other ones had, while they had a wider, you know, not really a set cluster, they were more, you know, center focused on one area as opposed to like a bunch here and then a spread out. But nevertheless, I just like with the FPS testing, like this is consistency. And granted, this is only at 30 feet. I didn't go back to 45 because I didn't feel like 45 is really a good engagement for where this blaster would come up. You know, I think when I'm thinking like Nerf wars and things like that, I'm thinking, you know, oh, my gun jam, my primary jam, now I need to pull out my pistol, my secondary, and be ready. Or I'm going close quarter combat where my primary is like, you know, my Worker Harrier, you know, 250 FPS, really long barrel, or whatever the case may be. So I'm going close quarter, so I want to pull my pistol out, and, you know, you're shooting 25, 30 feet. So that's kind of where my idea came from, or my reasoning rather for starting at 30 and only shooting 30. But I'm impressed. I really am. The one thing that I will say, and while there isn't like a true winner out of this, I would be interested to see what happens if we put a scar barrel in here. Worker makes one that I would believe would friction fit in here really well. The one thing that I would like to see, the reason why I say that is everyone will immediately jump on the bandwagon and say, oh yeah, well, putting on the scar barrel will lower your FPS a few, but it'll give you tighter groupings. That might not be true with this blaster, and the reason why is when that trigger is pulled, the the barrel recedes into the cylinder ever so slightly, which means, and I'll make sure, take that out so I don't shoot myself in the face. And there's a little bit of a gap in there from where like this silver like muzzle piece is, and this orange piece, muzzle piece. The cylinder goes back just far enough. There's a little bit of gap there from where the actual scar will be inserted. So, you know, there's going to be, you know, the silver barrel and then a gap, and then the friction fitted the actual scar barrel. So I'm wondering if that's going to have any type of negative effect, or if that's, you know, because that gives an extra ledge for the dart to kind of get caught up on, because it's not smooth all the way. I'm not sure. I don't know how that would work. I'm not sure. I'm going to test that out. I don't have one of those worker scar ones. I tried to friction fit in the 3D printed one from Out of Darts, and that one was just a little too tight, and I didn't want to break my scar, and I didn't want to break this barrel. But nevertheless, you know, this is a 3D printable part. Like, this wouldn't be too terribly difficult to reprint and give yourself a little bit extra wiggle room for those scar barrels. But yeah, that's the one thing that I was curious about. Is there a way to get these a little bit tighter? But nevertheless, you know, 30 feet, you just aim up, you know, 12 inches, and you're hitting like center mass every time. And again, what we have here is, you know, the horizontal spread is less than 2 feet. So good on you. And that kind of brings me to like my final thoughts, and kind of like wrapping everything up into like a nice little bow. 30 feet or less, absolutely. That's you know, that's the optimal range for this blaster. Can you hit people at 45? Absolutely. I did some test firing standing up, not at my, you know, my usual setup, and I was able to target no problem, just aiming about, like I said, aiming about 2.5 feet in the air on an angle, and I was able to kind of loft those in, still hitting the target relatively hard. You know, they weren't like kind of coasting in or anything like that. So 117 to 130 average FPS, depending on what dart you use. You know, if you're going with 130, you want to get the dart there faster. The bamboo ones are going to be your best bet. If you're looking for a little bit more consistency, you're going to want to go with the Worker Gen 3 pluses. You know, that it is what it is. As far as features that I love about this blaster, I think this feature right here, having the barrel meet the cylinder, is such a really cool feature. I don't think I've seen anything like that. And the fact that it's just so smooth, right? And the thing is, you know, the main complaint people are going to have is, oh, well, that's just a little bit extra slot. But I found myself lining my shot up with the trigger slightly pulled and just ready to pull it that last like 1/4 of an inch. So you will train yourself to make that, you know, you pick this gun up, you pull it up to aim it, you're gonna tighten your grip just ever so slightly, and then you're ready to fire. So I'm not too worried about that. I think that's a really cool feature. The reload thing, this is genius. And I know other blasters have done this before, but I feel like this one does it right, where there's enough space to fit the dart itself and then a little bit extra, and you can just sit here and load this thing without even looking. If I can pick up a dart off the table without looking, and it just, boom, you're loaded. Like, right? You're loaded. And it spins freely both ways, so, you know, you can always top off while you're looking for your next kill. There's one right there, poof, right? And the removable cylinder, this is just, you know, this is just so smart, not having like the flip out and then the flip in, because you can buy more of these, fill them up, put them in your dump pouch, and you can use them like magazines. And then you have a second dump pouch that when you're done with them, you just drop them in there and you're good to go. The other thing about the removable cylinder is the fact that even after it's primed, you can still pull it out, right? You can still spin it. You can still reload it. So you can prime it and have it ready to go and still, load darts into it. Features that I would change or things that I feel is missing is, as much as I love myself a good pair of iron sights, I would have loved to see some type of Picatinny rail right here. Just for a small optic or something like that, a little bit more adjustability when it comes to aiming. This is pretty, this is pretty tried and true. And there's really no adjusting. Actually, there is no adjusting. So you really just have to adjust your aim. So if you know that your darts are falling short, at 45 feet, you need to kind of aim up just a little bit and then pull that trigger. So yeah, the other thing that I would change or would have loved to see is the same loading mechanism on the other side. Left-handed users really, they could still use this feature on the right, on this side, but they're gonna have to go like this. Whereas having it like on this side would have been, not only symmetrical, but functionality would have been nice and just been a nice include for everybody. So anyway, those are the features that I like and dislike. This is still a really good blaster. $32. I think it normally retails for $35. Definitely worth a pickup, even if you're just plinking around the house. Still a lot of fun. Will it be usable in wars? Absolutely. Absolutely. In HVZ, this is going to be an awesome blaster. Nerf wars, like tournament style stuff, I don't see it kind of breaking into there. As a sidearm, absolutely. But, dual wielding is primary. Unless it's a goofy round, I don't see that happening. But I may be wrong. And leave in the comments if you'd use this as your primary in a competitive Nerf war. I'd be interested to hear about how that goes. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Really do appreciate it. Absolutely. Any comments, concerns, anything like that, make sure you leave them down below. I'll be happy to read them and answer them. And let me know what you guys think of this blaster. Make sure you check out our other videos. We've got a whole bunch of them coming up. We've got the long shot. We've got the Thunderbolt. Whole bunch of good stuff coming out. We're back, baby. So thanks for watching. We'll see you guys in the next one.